What do you think is the sneakiest way society tricks us into forgetting this high frequency energy of love?
Because my brain was so injured that there was an opening.
Change your frequency, change your life.
We can't be in low frequency and high frequency at the same time. Pain happens and we use it as a landing pad. We are keeping that pain alive.
Welcome to ATL Podcast. I'm Jason Rigby, and today we're honored to have Selina Maitreya, an inspiring spiritual teacher who transformed a life altering car accident and brain injury into a powerful message of hope. Her book, which I encourage everyone to get right now, you can hop down into the show notes and get the link, is called Raise Your Frequency, Transform Your Life. And it shows us how to turn everyday challenges and even the toughest moments into opportunities for peace and abundance. She's here to share her incredible journey and practical wisdom. Get ready for something I believe that is truly uplifting. Selena, your book starts with the bold promise that we can transform any difficulty, big or small, into peace by raising our frequency. For someone who's never heard of this, maybe someone who's just started their spiritual journey, your life, I think, proves that this isn't just feel good fluff, spiritual guru stuff that we have out there, but a real gritty truth. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and your transformation?
Well, I've been a spiritual student since I was 16, and that's when my name, Selina Maitreya, was given to me, and I just turned 70. So it's been quite a long time that I've been interested in spiritual development. In my fees, I met a teacher who I've worked with for going on 26 years now. And I learned in the early days how to actually take those spiritual values that I hold and actually move them into my life and have them be my guide. I also started channeling, spirit started channeling through me on the third visit with my teacher. And that was some incredible experience, a little daunting at first. But I learned how to cultivate the wisdom of the masters and how to keep welcoming them. And so as I progressed in my life changed dramatically because I was starting to use kindness and gratitude as vehicles to respond to difficulty from. And when we respond to difficulty from the higher aspects of kindness and patience and tolerance, that energy becomes who we are in that moment. And so we're shifting as we move along. And that just changed everything for me until 2013 when I had a major car event. Yeah. And that would
And
the
let's
event that shifted.
Yeah, let's go there to 2013 if you don't mind.
So I'd been a single parent for 15 years. I had a very successful career as a consultant to photographers worldwide. And it was time to move on because my kids were grown. My job was done. I had kept them in their home for all that time. And I was moving to New York to become a spiritual teacher full time. And so I was literally in my car, Jason, on a gorgeous sunny day, first day of the rest of my life. Everything had been moved out of my house the day before. And I was going to clean it for the last time. And then I was taking off for my first vacation in many years and then moving to New York. And as I came through a traffic light to head to my house, a woman ran a red light. I had an Audi convertible, and she had a van, and she was going 70 miles an hour. So you can imagine the impact on my driver door. She came right into the driver door was extreme, and I was knocked out on impact. I had the most extremely credible experience in the car, and spirit channeled through and told me exactly what was going on. And I was left with a traumatic brain injury that left me unable to do anything other than take a shower and a few other tasks for about 5 years. And it was a very unusual time. So everything I
5 years?
had stopped in a moment. Yeah. For 5 years, I mean, I did things, but at great difficulty. But I was living in New York, and New York is not necessarily where you want to be, New York City, with a brain injury. Spirit came through with lots of miracles. I'll just say nothing short of that. And I had constant access to the field of oneness. So I'd close my eyes and be in a place that is incredibly peaceful, but daily life was extremely difficult. Yeah. And I used all
So there you were with the brain injury. Do you think that that was tapping into? You think the brain injury actually helped tap into this universal consciousness?
The universal consciousness I had already been tapping into for many, many years, and the universal
Mhm.
consciousness came into the car and told me what was going on because we have this very connected experience. I feel my experience is that I am not separate from the oneness, that I am
Mhm.
constant communication. But what they told me in the car, I'll be happy to share it with you. I haven't shared it very much, but I'll be happy to share it. They told me that this was a car event, not an accident, that they had created this because I had enough study because I'd been working with this work for 15 years. I had enough study that now they were taking me out of my life and reworking my energetic systems so that when I came through the other side, I would be the teacher that they wanted me to be. That all of my, because you can't teach what you haven't lived. And when you've
Yes.
lived it, you need to, according to them, they felt they needed to shift my frequencies. And they told me that I would not have a broken bone or a cut when I left the car, but that I'd be taken out of my life for quite some time as I knew it, but that I was to completely surrender. So this was an invitation to surrender to the divine in a way I had not, that I was still using my ego in certain ways to move through the world, but that was what was happening, and they said that in my surrender to them, they would take care of all of the third dimensional reality, which was remarkable because I'll share a story with you later where they, consistently did. So it was not because I had done anything wrong or needed a slap upside the head. It was because they wanted to take me out of my reality and
Mhm.
had the opportunity to shift things and everything was stuck. I was going from 110 miles an hour. I was very type A, accomplishing a whole lot in my life to doing absolutely nothing for many, many years. And during that time, they gave me the book, which they did not tell me about in the car, not until later.
That's so wild. It's like, I look at it, and you talk about this when you write this in your book about this high frequency energy of love.
Mm, mm.
And what we view as chaos, even that, like, everyone would sit here and be like, "Oh my god, that is so traumatic, that is so horrific." That's the most chaotic thing that can happen to somebody, is to be just driving along normally, like, "Yay, we're going on vacation, we're moving, this is exciting," to turning
First
into go ahead.
stay the rest of my life.
To this chaos. What do you think, especially in society and with, everyone that's listening right now, what do you think is the sneakiest way society tricks us into forgetting this high frequency energy of love? And then, not only that, but you said it was the first day of your life. Is that when you first noticed this in your own journey?
First noticed what?
This high frequency energy of love, did it
Oh no.
amplify? I mean, no, you
Yeah.
were studying for many, many years
Yeah.
before,
Yeah. Yeah.
but did it were you like all of a sudden it came out of a realization of like, wow, this is so much spiritual awareness, this is absolutely next level, if that makes sense.
That would have been great if that had happened, but that wasn't my experience. What my experience was because it's this work is even in what seems like a very traumatic, extreme experience, my takeaway is in smaller moments. It's over time. So also when you're brain injured, because there is the physical part of me, right? And that's so important
Yes.
to talk about here. When the brain is injured, y your whole body, because the brain oversees all the operations in the body, is fatigued. Total 24-hour exhaustion for 5 years. Everything is an effort. So, I didn't have, like, an instantaneous that would have been lovely, did not have that, but what I did have in the car was this instantaneous invitation to a paradigm that I had never experienced, way beyond any meditation I had done, no words to explain it. I now have the language and the understanding that it was oneness that I was in because I didn't feel like I existed. There was nothing there. And that was amazing. And that was what I referred to a few moments ago that I had all along for the first 5 years because my brain was so injured that there was an opening. So I believe my experience, right? Not a scientist, but my experience is that when the brain is functioning well, part of what it does is it filters out all of the energy that's in the air that's bringing this podcast to people, all of the energy that's in the air all the time. And it wasn't filtering that out anymore. And I mean, that's what we get filtered out every day. And so I had this opening to oneness that I had never had before. And it's still with me, but now I have to go to real deep meditation to get there because my brain is healed and filtering all this stuff out. So I think what to go back to your original question of society tricking us. I don't know that society tricks us as much as we're conditioned. We're conditioned from society and our family to focus on our brain, to focus on our emotions as our guidance through the day. And Spirit has said to me that that's not the way it was meant. Our highest knowing, a relationship with the divine within, to the point where it's activated and guiding us, and we're hearing it and we're following it. that was meant to be our guidance. Our thoughts were meant to figure out the steps to take in the third dimensional world. Once the guidance was given, our emotions are meant to alert us that we're out of alignment with the high frequency of love, but the guidance was always meant to be from within. But what we're given in society is you are your thoughts, you are your emotions, end of story. No introduction to the spiritual tool bag within us, to the relationship with the divine as our guide at all. So we grow up not knowing that unless people are in church, unless they are introduced to meditation, they're not introduced to the divine. And very rarely are you introduced through religion to the divine as your guide. You're introduced to the divine as something that's outside of you, not something
Mhm.
you have within you that you can cultivate. And we can cultivate it.
Yeah, I love that, Selena. And going along that thread, and when you just opening up and you saying that spirit told you it was orchestrated, how do you convince someone? Because we get this question all the time on especially in like our YouTube comments and stuff, that they're skeptical because they're going through a hardship, they're going through something that may
Mhm.
be horrific in their life.
Mm.
And then, some people think, well, it's just evolution, it's just bad luck. But you're kind of looking at it as a cosmic setup. Like this is spirit guiding you along and orchestrating you for that next level of spiritual growth. What would you say to someone like that maybe, like you are are into something that may be horrific, maybe it's cancer, something like that,
Mhm.
and they're having to go through this? How can they begin to understand that yes, this is orchestrated and yes, this is spirit teaching you something?
Well, I would never attempt to convince anybody of anything, but introducing them to the possibility. That's what I would do. I would give them an invitation. I would offer them an invitation to a possibility that they have a tool bag within them that they haven't accessed. And I would remind them that their breath is an incredible tool, that the breath is the physical manifestation of the soul. I'd introduce them to what I know to be true, which may not be what they know to be true now, but as a possibility to consider that this breath, which is a physical manifestation of the soul, is an incredible tool to slow down the entire body and to create an opportunity for space, excuse me, between thoughts and response, between event and our response. And I take them through the breath of life practice so they could see how their state changes in that moment. Because I've taken so many people through breath of life, especially when they start irritated or worried, and they come out completely different. Because when you're irritated, when you're worried, you're in low frequency. When you're in breath of life, it is the manifestation, the physical manifestation of the soul. That is the highest frequency. And we both know, Jason, that in this reality we live in third BD reality, we can't go upstairs and downstairs at the same time. We can't be sick and well at the same time. And we can't be in low frequency and high frequency. So, what they discover in going through breath of life is they actually have the experience of being in low frequency, doing the practice, coming out the other side, and feeling very different. So I would introduce them to possibility and to the practice that shows them then and there that they have a tool that can shift the way that they respond to life. And it's one of many tools that we have in the book, but it is one that never leaves us. Breath never leaves us. And it costs us nothing but our willingness to engage it and to give it a try.
Yeah, that's amazing. You just mentioned high and low frequencies, and this is, I think, a perfect time to introduce this. You say this in your book that we're not just a brain or a body, but a life stream. And I love
Yes.
that word. That word is so beautiful. With these high and low frequencies dancing in this physical shell that we have. How do you explain to someone who's stuck thinking, I am my thoughts? And why does this shift, why is this shift so important? What do you mean when you say live stream? I want to get into that.
Well, first of all, I want to give credit where credit is due. The beautiful teacher Ganga Ji, I don't know if you know of Ganga Ji, she phrased live stream many, many years ago.
Mhm.
What she did, it just spoke to me. So I want to just credit that where it comes from. So let me explain who we are first. Most people believe they're their thoughts or their emotions. End of story. We refer to ourselves, Jason, in a one dimension, me or I. If we feel we're a me or an I, when that me or I is doing something that doesn't serve, there's no place to go because there's nothing to shift because I'm doing it. But the reality is this life stream is multidimensional. I have a physical body, one dimension. I have a physical brain, another. I have a personality, a history in this body. I have an emotional body and I have a thinking mind. All of those are manifestations, but I also have two energy fields within me. I have the low frequency energy of the ego, which Eckhart Tolle talked about beautifully in all of his books. He calls it the pain body. That is the low frequency of all of the experiences of pain. Every experience contains frequency. Every experience we have. Low frequency is the pain. High frequency is the energy of the divine. This is what's within my life stream. So there's all these moving parts. So now that we know there's moving parts, we get to learn how to recognize when we're in low frequency, use some of the tools in the book and change into high frequency. That's our choice. And this choice of being able to be aware of how we be as we do, and then to choose to shift our frequency with one of the tools into high frequency, that's freedom. That is like amazing freedom to people when they actually recognize, wait, you mean I can actually change my experience? I don't, I can actually do that. That's huge freedom.
Yeah, that freedom there alone, switching to that high frequency. But we have daily life situations that happen. It's like, whether it's a traffic jam, a rude cashier, and most people maybe through life we get all these annoying things that happen. Maybe the boss is a little angry with us. When we first step into something like this where we begin to understand, and the who are you part of your book, you get into this extraordinary life, this higher frequency life. And I know, and I want you to explain your book as a workbook. Is there beginning steps we can start to take to practice? Are these little annoying things the gateway to oneness? Selena, you say, and I think this is so interesting in the book, that whether it's a traffic jam, a rude cashier, it's not just annoying because a lot of people think of like, how can I be spiritual? Or how can I have this spiritual bliss? I need to be in a cave and meditate all the time, but it's a secret doorway to oneness. In your book, you told me, off air before we started that it's more of a workbook, and that people need to understand. How is a traffic jam or rude cashier? How is that something that helps us to grow spiritually?
It's a really excellent question, and I love it. So thank you. All of those moments, because when you were saying that I was smiling, and I was smiling because all of those moments are exactly the opportunities we have to respond from love. Spirit has said the reason we have difficulty in our lives is so that we can respond from love. And when we respond from love, we're literally accessing the higher frequency of who we are. And when we access it, now our conditioning tells us and teaches us to respond to low frequency with more of the same. Somebody cuts you off, the finger goes up. Somebody cuts you off, you scream at them because that's our response to fear. That's what we've been trained. This every cashier that might be tired, so they're rude to you, or everybody cutting you off who just maybe didn't think or maybe is in their ego, that becomes the moment. So it's kind of all of the irritation is the actual opportunity we have to use to practice, and it is a practice to respond from love. So the first thing we do is we train ourselves to be aware of how we be so that if and that's what you were referring to before. In one of the chapters in the book, people are given a whole long list of different situations and how do they respond. And that is so that they can notice when they're in their car. Okay, today I'm in the car, I'm driving to work. Let me notice how I be with what happens. And you can prepare for it ahead of time, but also if it's in your consciousness, if you're doing the work of looking at how you respond to life, you're going to notice and have more awareness. And there's a practice in the book that takes you right into how to be aware during the day of how you be. And that's the very first step. So those situations, that's gold for us because now think about that too. Before, difficulty is difficult. We just have to suck it up and put up with it. No, we have new freedom. Here's an opportunity to shift. So thank you, cashier. Thank you for person who's cutting me off because I'm able now to use that to be different. And as I'm different, as I respond from love, I raise my frequency. And what happens, Jason, that I've seen from doing this myself and with my students is each time we raise our frequency, we change our internal core frequency. And over time, the parts of other people that we found irritating the experiences in life that we found challenging start to not challenge us as much, start to not bother us because we're not as personally invested through the ego. We've been responding from love.
That's so good. And I wanna stay with this frequency thing because I think this is so good. There's a lot of self-help books that are out there, and a lot of even spiritual teachings are out there about where it focuses on change your thinking. What you write is change your frequency, change your life. If we start going down the wrong path into this change your thinking, what's the game changer here? Why are we chasing the wrong fix, you think?
And I don't think we're chasing the wrong fix because changing your thinking is totally appropriate and very, very valid. However, let's look at how the brain works. Science tells us, Jason, that the brain does not create anew. What the brain
Mhm.
does is it recognizes that which it knows and creates structure from it. So what the brain recognizes is frequency because the brain is filled of frequency. That's all it is, right? Whatever material it is in the frequency. And we have EKGs, we have EEGs that measure the frequency in the brain, the frequency in the heart. When the frequency in the brain is no longer, we are no longer. So, what the brain recognizes is frequency. So, let's follow this. We live in a third dimensional world. Everything here is dense, so dense that atoms come together and form a computer, form a TV. This has been proven by science. So,
Mhm.
the 3D world is dense. The high frequency is very, very fine. And so, if you're trying to change your thoughts, which are frequency that the brain has recognized, created structure around in the 3D world, which are what it creates structure around, become thoughts and emotions. If you're trying to change those, they're already in the 3D world. That is a dense change. You have to change an awful lot over and over and over. When you're trying to change the frequency that informs the brain, that is a much more efficient change because you're working with the building blocks the brain is working with and not with the final result that's in the third dimensional world. So there's nothing wrong with changing your thoughts. But why work so hard to change your thoughts when you can change your frequency? And your frequency is what is alive. And as you change your frequency, you're recognizing the low frequency, but you're replacing it with the high frequency. And that high frequency is the divine. So as you bring the divine into the world as your response, which looks like love, which looks like patience, kindness, compassion, tolerance, understanding, gratitude, when you put your attention on that, you become more of that because we are taught from the divine, you are your attention and what you put your attention on grows. So not only are you responding in the moment and changing your frequency so you can respond to the event, but you're building your relationship with the divine in such a profound way because you're choosing to bring it into the third dimensional world. When we bring anything into the third dimensional world, it becomes more tangible for us because we're not just energy, we're energy in form. And this whole world is form. So we have this double gift of having a more efficient way to make change and an opportunity to build a relationship with the divine. And for me, that's just a winning combination.
Let's get practical with that because this is so good. This is really, really good, Selena. I love this, and I want everybody to understand this. We have a lot of young people that listen to our podcast, and so I want you guys to understand this. So you get flipped off, you have that cashier. Instead of yelling at them back, or maybe you're passive aggressive and introvert, so you just think I'm not worthy anymore. I'm a shitty person. Blah blah blah. All of a sudden, you start. In your mind, showing love towards them, having the feeling of love, and then having gratitude. You say that brings that divine into form into this physical world. Practically, what is happening there?
Yeah,
Like,
let's
that person that's doing that.
I love that. So let me give you a really good example, okay? And it comes into one of the questions you had asked. I have had a lifelong habit, kind as I am, loving as I am, spiritual as I am. I'm very transparent. I have had a lifelong habit of having a very hard time being put on hold on the phone. And I have been, as many people have, as we all have, that just is the place for me where I was going to lose my shit more than anywhere, right? That was what I watched for, right? When I was doing this work years ago, I had to watch for that over and over and over because I would be the person on the end of the phone that was the screamer after being on hold for 45 minutes. So that was my place. So what I did is I trained myself through this work to not do that. It took a lot of time. Now I get on the phone and I will very right away say, I just need you to know that I'm feeling a little irritated because I've been on the phone for a while. And if you hear any irritation in my voice, it's me and it's not you. And I said that to a woman on the phone just a few weeks ago because I still do this. I want to make sure I'm in high vibration. And she said to me, "Oh my God, nobody has ever said that.
Mm, mhm,
I can't tell you what a terrible day I've been having, and you have just turned my day." So not only did I keep myself in check because when I say that, I'm in high vibration. So I'm not gonna be in low vibration. I'll give you another quick example. I was in a supermarket, and I use the supermarket a lot in my teachings in the book because it's one of those places that people in real life have a hard time. I'm a big cook. When I was taking care of my kids, I cooked dinner every single night. I love to cook. It was part of how I show love. And so I was in the middle of cooking and I didn't have an item and I shut the stove, ran out of the door, went to the local supermarket. I buy one thing, I'm on the 8 items or less, and there's a woman in front of me with a full basket and it's on. And I'm standing there feeling myself, Jason, get more and more furious. And so I did breath of life and I calmed myself down. And she dropped something on the floor that broke. It was a pickle jar or something. And she started crying. And so I went over to her and I said, "No worries. Don't you worry about this. I'm going to get you another jar." And I went and I got another pickle jar for her. And I came back and both she and the cashier were kind of beside themselves. And I said, "Look, let's just mop this up. Let's just take care of this. No worry. Everybody's good." And the woman turned to me and she said, "I just lost my mother today." And she said, "You have no idea how your kindness really helped." So these stories I'm sharing with you, and there are so many others that my students have shared, that when we are able to not personalize an issue, whether it's on the road or in the supermarket or with our partners. You come home at the end of the day and you've had a bad day and your partner's just sitting there, not talking, not doing anything, and you make it about you and them. We
mhm.
think about them. When we stop personalizing and we're able to just take a breath and know that we may not know that this woman lost her mother or that the person on the other end of the phone was having a tough day, but when we treat people from kindness, that kindness, we're in the energy of oneness, and that oneness is the only energy we all share, because remember those multidimensional aspects we talked about? They're all different. All of those aspects are different in all of us except for one, and that is the high energy of love. Even our low frequency energy, our pain is different. We all have different experiences in pain, but we all are the energy of love. That is the energy that came into this body and breathed life out of me into the air, the breath. And when we are in that energy of that high frequency, we are connecting to the energy in others in the high frequency. And that is where we're connecting from. So we're no longer connecting through the ego and the third dimensional world in that moment where I helped the woman or I said to the woman on the phone as a help to me, not knowing I was helping her, that I just want you to know I'm the one that's irritated here and it's not about you. It opened her up because I came from oneness and she responded from oneness. So that is our ability to be in the oneness of love of who we are with everybody. I know it was a bit.
Yeah. No, that's awesome because I wanna go into this even more because let's use the pickle jar example, with that lady, 'cause I think it's so good and it's so practical and it's something that everyone can practice right now. Every single person can practice this. Yeah. What is I know I want to get into this personalization or this separateness, and this egoic monkey mind side of us that wants to stay separate. It wants to make it all about me. It wants to be narcissistic and make things personalized. I want Jason. I want me, the individual. So whenever I get into like you're talking about the divine with oneness, that communication, am I speaking kind of almost in a supernatural way? When you talk to her in kindness or in love or in gratitude, putting oneness in the priority of everything and giving up of yourself in that, what happens spiritually? Is there a transmutation that's happening? Is fourth density coming in? What's going on there?
I believe the energy of love within me is what's communicating to the energy of love within her. We have all of these different ways of being in life, but they all come down to really 2 areas. Are we in ego or are we in our divine? And we all have the divine. So I honestly don't know the language to use as to what happens. I just know that it does happen, that
Mhm.
when we are in the energy of love, you know what? I'll go back to what I said before. We are all trained to respond to whatever frequency. This is what Spirit has said. You were trained in the third dimensional world to respond to the frequency that landed in your world. So most of us, when we are have low frequency landing, we're responding that way, but it works the other way too. So when I'm responding to her from high frequency, her natural tendency is going to be to respond from that aspect of her multidimensionality too, because that's what she's trained to do. She's trained to respond to that. So I'm giving her a pathway to respond to me. When I am in responding from love to her, she has a pathway now to respond to me. If I respond from irritation and she's irritated, I respond from irritation. That's the only pathway we got. But I'm giving
Mhm.
an option, and I'm giving me a new option.
That's so good. There's no victimhood in high frequency.
No, can't be. Love is love. It doesn't exist. It doesn't. And the victimhood only exists in the ego. The ego is all about victimhood. That's what keeps it alive. That's why it fights so hard. And that's why this is work. And I share with people that I don't shy away from the fact that this is effort. It is beautiful work and it's beautiful effort with rewards along the way, but it's not something that happens in a 24-day meditation challenge. It's got to be in our life. Bring it in. I don't think there's anything wrong with 24-day meditation practices, but that's a separate piece of work. This
Mhm.
work is all about bringing our practices into our life. And that's what I love about it, because our life doesn't leave us. And as you pointed out earlier, we have so many opportunities to practice. And today, more so because the stakes are even higher today. The
So
stakes are even higher.
yeah, so Selena, this is so good. It's so practical and this is great. So the mom that's out there that's stressed out, that, and you're a mother, the mom that's out there that's stressed out, that's having to do everything, figure out the bills, figure out, keep her husband happy, and she's got 2 or 3 kids that she's working with. Each of those are opportunities to practice being in high frequency. And if I practice that muscle, just like going to the gym, and I doing it daily, it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Is that what you're communicating?
Absolutely, because I do compare consciousness to a muscle very often. And I always say, the free weights on the other side of my living room, if they sit there, they do nothing. But if I pick them up and use them over and over, my muscle grows. And you know what? It takes a while to see that muscle grow, but it's growing underneath. And it may take a couple of months before I see my bicep actually shift and change, but it's changing while that's happening. And consciousness is a muscle. And it's kind of like, when I first started doing yoga about 30, 35 years ago, nobody was doing yoga then, but the few people I knew who were loved it and raved about it. And so I started doing it, and it was the most awkward thing. Like, I couldn't get my body to move. I couldn't, let alone forget the breathing in the body at the same time. Nothing was working, but I kept at it. And now, of course, many years later, it's one of my favorite practices. So, like yoga, when we start to attempt to notice how we be, which is the first step in the process, is being aware, not just moving through our life doing, but learning and cultivating the talent to become aware. That's like what you talked about the muscle. It may not happen for a bit, it may feel a little awkward like yoga, but when you stay with it, especially, there's a practice in the book that helps you to look at your calendar for the day and to put in where it's appropriate and you're able to do it 5 times, 5-minute sessions, or no, it was 3 check-ins, I'm sorry, 3 check-ins during the day, morning, afternoon, and early evening, where all you do is notice your state. And you notice your emotional, your intellectual state, your spiritual, your sense of peace or not, and you just notice. But you're getting yourself into the habit. That's like that exercise of picking up the free weight to build the muscle. Because if you do that for 2 weeks, 3 times a day, just noticing, you're getting into a habit. Habit is a beautiful tool that we've been given in the third dimensional world that we get to use for our benefit.
I think one of the most profound things I read in your book, Selena, is the free will paradox, in the sense of, and you say something that was so, it like shook me to the core. You say we've been using it to say no to love since we were kids.
Well, we
Why? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Say, let me define free will as it's been defined by a source, because that might be a good place to start. Source defines free will as our choice to say yes or no to the divine as our guidance. And they say that our life up to now is a reflection of the times we've said yes or no. Because when we're guided, the only other option for guidance is fear, the ego, which is fear. And when we're guided by fear, we create very different results than when we're guided by the divine. So that's the definition of free will. And when we are choosing the divine as our guidance, we're working obviously from the heart, and we're going to be creating moments like we had discussed before. So it's important to understand the definition of what free will is. So it's not that we've been, asked to, that we're doing anything wrong if we say no to the divine. That's choice. But why would we want to say no to the divine once we understand what that's about?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, that answers it perfectly. Your, brain injury left you unable to type or hold a conversation, yet spirit said to you, "Write a book." I wanna understand that, like,
Me too.
that's insane, like, I mean,
It's crazy. But it also, it was crazy and it wasn't, because when it came through, I said to them, "Really? I can't even type." I was a supremely organized person. I could never type. My mother never wanted her daughters to be secretaries, and so she opted us out of that in high school, which would have been nice. I mean, I've written 3 books. It would have been nice to type, to not type. But the point being that when spirit came through and said that, I said, "How do I do this? Because, I can't type. I don't have any organizational skills." And they said, "Just record in your phone." So for 5 years, I recorded the downloads that came through. And the downloads were beautiful. And when I go into state, it's going into oneness and it's incredible. I had never said no to the divine. And so I didn't know how it was going to be accomplished. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew that I was going to take that first step. And that speaks a lot to this work, because there's so much in front of us when we want to make a change, but it's really taking that first step. So when they gave me the guidance of recording, I recorded into my phone. And in year 6, when I could type more efficiently, because I could type, but it's very hard to explain what it's like to have a brain injury. But you can't I was unable to focus. Having a conversation for more than 5 minutes was incredibly difficult for me. I did it when I had to, but it was incredibly difficult. So to go back to the book, in year 6, it took 2 years to type. So I had 7 years. I didn't even know, Jason, I'll share with you, because of the nature of my brain injury, as I'm recording, I'm not I'm not aware of what I'm recording because I'm in state. I never went back and looked listened to the messages, because it took so much effort just to record, that to listen would be extra effort, and I did it. I never read what I typed, because typing took so long and it was so painful to do, that I didn't want to go back and read what I'd read. So I never read a first draft of this book until I had met my editor, Nancy, in Woodstock, which is a phenomenal story how I got there. And and she gave me back my first edited version. So it was 7 years of doing this per what I was capable of, and I had never read it for 7 years. And when I read it, it was everything I had been living for the years before my event, and everything I had done to get the words on paper. It totally blew me away, because I knew how helpful and important this book would be just to people in their everyday life. These were the tools I used in the last 7 years to not be in fear, to not be in anxiety about not knowing if I'd ever be able to be well again, if I'd ever be able to work, if my life would ever be anything close to normal, if I'd ever be able to have an opportunity to recoup the financial situation that I lost. I had no idea if that was going to happen, but all the tools I used kept me out of worry and in high frequency. And I knew if they could do that for me, oh my God, what these tools would do for other people.
Yeah, I mean, to speak of that, you ditched a relationship, you filed for bankruptcy, you moved multiple times, all while writing this book. And most people would call that a breakdown. You called it a breakthrough. What do you think is the one practice from the book or maybe there's multiple. How did you stay sane in all this? And how can somebody, when they feel like they're just life is in a turmoil or in a mess, how can they stay sane? How do they understand it as a breakthrough?
Well, I think first of all, it's important to recognize that I had a deep relationship with the divine before this happened.
Hmm.
And I'd been using my spiritual practices in my life that are the ones in the book before this happened. So I was already primed. I would say the first thing I'd say to remember it is the line from the Bible. And I'm not a Bible reader. I've just never really read it all the way through. I'm sure there's some great stories, but I do remember, and we all know this line that God never gives you more than you're able to handle. And I would say the universe doesn't give you more than you're able to handle.
Right.
They know. The divine knows what we need. The divine is guiding us whether we choose it or not. That's not my belief, that's my experience. And so when we're in chaos, it's given to us for a reason. So the first thing I would share with somebody is if they're in chaos, is that's what's showing up in the third dimensional world. I mean, we're talking to people that understand what we're with the language we're using and they're engaged in this. So understand that that's what landed in the third dimensional world. But go to the divine inside. Just go to quiet and ask, what's the higher octave purpose? Because there's always a higher octave purpose for everything that lands in the third dimensional world. And so, just in the action of choosing to go to quiet in whatever way feels right for someone, in that moment of going to quiet, you're out of the low frequency and you're engaging the high frequency. Whether you're attuned and mature enough in the world of spirit to experience the divine speaking back to you or not, which is lovely, but not always needed, because as soon as you make that switch to make the choice to leave what happened and go into curiosity and asking the divine, you're in high frequency. So you're just automatically not going to feel the same way. So hopefully you are able, in the maturity that you have, to sense, because I call it a sensing. Spirit doesn't talk in words, it's vibration. So we sense why this is happening. And then you can respond from love. You could ask the divine, what energy of love shall I respond from? What energy am I missing in my field? And then you can respond to that. So it's the willingness to believe you have choice, the willingness to understand and believe that things in the third dimensional world aren't just third dimensional. They're divinely given to you. So something that so that you can respond in high frequency and bring more of that energy into your system because that's what's needed in order to balance you out. And that's when these moments happen. We're being given all these moments so we can be in the energy of love. It's not just us giving it to other people, which is lovely. It's us doing this for us. This is a book of self-responsibility, of taking on that, you don't need to personalize life. You need to only understand that that moment is happening for your spiritual growth, for you to be able to commune more with love, to be more of love, because that's what we were meant to do. If every time we respond to difficulty from love, we become that. And Jason, we put that into the field of oneness that
Mhm.
we all share a space in. And God knows, and Goddess knows that we need that these days. So when we do this work, we don't just do it for us. This is service. Believe it or not, when we respond from love, we're doing service. And students ask me all the time, what can I do in this cray cray world? Well, look at you. Where's your spirituality? Where's the application of what you believe in your everyday life? That's where you start as service.
That's so good. I want to get into like maybe I know we're coming up on the hour, so just have a couple more questions. But I know there are some people out there right now that are listening to this that are drowning in a health crisis, maybe even, that something that's as horrific as a breakup. You write that pain is the dead and it's an alarm clock, and alarm system. And I want us to kind of dive into that because the person that's experiencing pain right now in their physical body in this health crisis, they're like, what, Selena, what do you mean? Like it's an alarm clock? Can you explain that to them?
Yeah. The alert system, we're once again trained for pain to be nothing but pain. So what happens is, let's take it out of physical pain, but physical pain is very real too. So let's go back to our life experience in the car, for instance. And you're in the car and you're driving along and you're feeling really, really comfortable. And then somebody cuts you off on the road and you're in fear and you do whatever you do and it stays with you and you use it as a landing pad. Perhaps you do have lots of physical pain, and I've had lots of physical pain. I know that is one of the toughest experiences in the third dimensional world to override, but we can choose to live beyond those experiences. So if you're in physical pain, that is an alert in that moment that you can make another choice. So what's the other choice? Because people are going to say it understandably so, I don't have another choice. It's just there. And so I would say when it's just there, try this. While you're sitting there experiencing the pain, begin to feel in your heart what you're grateful for.
Mm.
And gratitude is a word that's thrown around, but it is an active practice. And I would so encourage people not to feel like, oh, here we go, another gratitude practice, because I understand that. But here's what it looks like. You feel in your heart one by one, like really feel the people you're grateful for. So you bring one person up and you feel it, you see them, you feel in your heart as you see all of their great qualities one by one and you feel those qualities. You really bring it into your body. You visualize an experience with them where one of their highest qualities was on full display, and you feel that in your heart. And then you come out of it. And is the physical pain going to be there? Yes, but it's not going to be experienced the same way. I've done this with my brain injury. I have a student that has, sometimes I forget words still. There's a condition where people are really dizzy and it's an inner ear thing.
Right, right.
And we've worked together very closely on this, and she's used this practice over and over, and the condition has lessened and lessened and lessened. And when she has it, she uses it to relieve it, and it does. It relieves that. So the energy of gratitude is a beautiful energy to bring in. But the question is when pain arises, people either use it as a landing pad now. They dive into it. They call all their friends up about what happened on the road and let me tell you what so and so did. And Spirit has said, we are our attention and work
Mhm.
attention on grows. So if pain happens and we use it as a landing pad, we are keeping that pain alive by talking about it over and over and over long after the event. So we are keeping alive that which we don't never wanted in the first place. So the option is to use pain as an alert. Up, here I am. I feel the physical pain. Time to give myself a break to go to gratitude to relieve myself of a few moments of this pain. Let me have this moment on the road. It's over, it's done with. But in that moment on the road where somebody's cut me off and I feel in fear, let me take a breath. Let me remember, let me breathe and lower my system so I can send them good wishes and ask them to drive more safely on the road for themselves and us all. So that moment becomes an alert telling us that we have the choice to bring in high frequency as our response to that moment.
That's so helpful to so many people, especially, with physical ailments. Last question, Selena, and we're on the hour. Your book took a decade of pain, surrender, and spirit to birth. What's the one thing that you would like to leave with every spiritual seeker's soul and why? Like what would you like your final message to be?
Thank you. We are living in very, very unusual times, and everyone is being called now. Everyone is being called to either have their boots on the ground, to speak truth to power, to be a light on the hill, to keep their energy pure, to shine a light for those people who have their boots on the ground and for us all. This is not a time of inactivity. This is a time to learn how to access all of who you are, including the divine within you as your response system. We all have this opportunity now in these very constrictive times that are also still creative. It's creative and constrictive at the same time. And we all have an opportunity to show up and make a difference. And the way we make a difference is how we respond in every single moment. Because if we all responded to each other in these tiny moments of irritation, up to the big ones from love,
Yes.
we're in a very different place.
Oh, that's so good. Everyone, hop down into the show notes. Let's get her book in this powerful message of hope. Raise your frequency, transform your life. That is the key. And it's in your book. So everyone go down and purchase it. Thank you, Selena, so much.
Thank you, Jason, for all of what you do for all of us. Just so appreciate your efforts and talent and heart.